Hey guys, welcome back. It's Radek here. So I've had the Rock GC grinder for about a month now and have been using it every single day, multiple times a day to grind coffee for espresso. And today what I thought I'd do is I would go through kind of a workflow on grinding beans with this machine and kind of give you my tidbits on the things that I really like about it, some of the things that I don't like, and some of the modifications that I've made or am planning to make the experience a little bit better. So yeah, stay tuned and let's get started. Alright fam, so today we're going to be using the Eclipse Coffee Roasters Boundless Blend, which is it's supposed to notes of chocolate and walnut, which sounds awesome to me. Love the stuff. So, yeah, you have your catch can. This is kind of how I go through, using the Time More scale here, which I'll probably do a little review on myself in a little bit. Plop that on there. Tear it. Just kidding. Tear it. Do about 18 Genos. 18.1. Good enough. Okay, so number one thing about this grinder that kind of frustrates me starting off is getting these bloody beans into the hopper. So it's not like, yeah, you can pour about halfway and then you gotta shake it, bang it, and then if you're ever using the water technique where you're gonna shake it up in there so it doesn't stick and doesn't have static, then your beans sometimes will get a little bit, sticky in there, and then you gotta tap, 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 get them all, fish them all out of there and stick them in your hopper. That's one of my beefs. So what I would do, I guess, in the future is maybe create like a little funnel thing that kind of comes out, and I could just dump it directly in, or maybe just extend this a little bit higher and just dump it so I don't have to awkwardly knock the can against the grinder. That's it. So before we start grinding, okay, I've set this thing, it's about 5 notches away from the very end. And then this is the one thing I've noticed is that the beans will want to jump out as it goes through the burrs. They can fly out a bit. So what I did was I just created a little leather cover with a hole in it and a slit, and I just slipped that baby over when I'm about to grind. And this is probably one of my favorite things. I can go ahead. So I'll kind of start grinding. So one of the reasons why I bought this grinder in the first place is because I didn't want a really noisy, annoying grinder for 5:30 in the morning kind of wake up calls. I don't want to wake my girlfriend up. We live in a small condo. We don't have the luxury of being on a different floor when we're making coffee in the morning. So that was one of the biggest things for me, and it's quite quiet. All you really hear is basically the actual beans getting smushed in the burrs and nothing else. No motor, no nothing, maybe a little extra heavy breathing, so that's about it. It takes about, for 18 grams, it usually takes me about 60 seconds, maybe a little longer to rifle through it, but I thought it'd be more of a pain than it is. It's not that bad. That's it. Now this kind of takes me to the next step here. So if you don't use the water spray technique when you shake your before you grind your beans, this grinder is pretty bad, especially where I live here in Calgary. It's pretty bad for static. So that's kind of an issue because it's not a zero retention grinder whatsoever at that point. So what I find that I've had to do is basically kind of just knock the grinder down give it 1 more or 2 more rotations, quick knock, and then that's about as good as it's gonna get for me. So, so yeah, there you go. Now, with that being said, because there's some difficulty with retention here, when I move this grinder around and I kind of set it down, sometimes the little remnants end up dropping on here and gets a little dirty. So what I'm planning on doing is cutting out like a leather sheet essentially that I can easily kind of pull out and dump out or brush off, just because if the grounds are on here, it's a little tricky to kind of brush it off or shake it off, you know, in the sink kind of thing. Can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. So my plan for the future is just have like a leather sheet that I can easily fold, brush off, put it back on there, and have no mess. So we have our beans here. The other thing I really like about this grinder is that just the consistency. Once I have it dialed in, it's not going anywhere. It has no problem staying where it is. I haven't found that there's any changes in the way that the beans pour, you know, or my espresso tastes. So it's been very consistent, and the beans are always extremely fluffy and light and really nice to tap. So that's definitely one of the pros. Let's see what else there is. Yeah, the other thing that I found a little bit tricky, so after I tried to adjust the burrs once because I took it all apart and I was interested in the mechanics. Adjusting the burrs is a little bit challenging. There's 2 screws, one on the front, one on the back, and it basically you have the burr from underneath and you have a burr that sits on top, and those 2 screws basically just move the top burr a little bit in one direction so you can kind of center it on the bottom burr. And that is hard. It's not hard, but it's not easy either, and for someone who's like if I have the opportunity to infinitely tune something, I will infinitely work on it. And so it took me forever to do it. And finally I just said, this is as good as it's gonna get. But it's not the easiest thing to adjust, I guess. Out of the box, it comes pretty much set and good to go, so I wouldn't even worry about it that much. The other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on was flipping from espresso to pour over isn't the easiest thing in the world. You definitely have to kind of count your clicks because there's no intuitive way of knowing where you are or, you know, what ground size you're at. So you have to kind of count your clicks, memorize them or write them down if you're going to flip regularly from pour over to espresso. But other than that, you know, it's fine. It works great for pour over, it works great for espresso. I'm sure it'd do just fine with cold brew coffee as well, so it's been pretty good. The only thing I can think of as far as the actual adjustment ring is that I wish that it just had a bit more solid feel. It has a solid feel near the end as that spring kind of compresses those little notches in the adjustment ring. You can feel those clicks a little bit more, they're a little bit more hardy, I guess you could say. But when you're a little bit further out, closer to the pour over, those clicks aren't so snappy, and it can feel almost like not loose, but loose, if you know what I mean. But other than that, I mean, I've had nothing but good things, good experiences with this grinder. I predominantly use it for espresso, and I've used it for pour overs a few times, but I think it's just beautiful. It looks like a sculpture to me, like a little metal sculpture, and it's fun to think that I can customize it with some leather pieces, and it just kind of, I think, suits the grinder well. So I'm excited to see if maybe Rock will come out with a different catch can. That'll make my life a little bit easier, so I'll show you what I mean. So if I'm on my portafilter here, is the spout of the catch can is quite wide, so if I was to just dump it in, it would probably go all over the place. And so I kind of have to use a spoon and just shovel it in. And I mean, it's just an unnecessary step, in my opinion, when you have cash cans and grinders that have a perfectly like the niche 0. It has a great little catch can. You just flip it onto the portafilter, flip it back, and done. No mess, no nothing, right? This thing is a little bit like, I'm not making a mess now because I'm an expert, but yeah, just saying, right? The first few times I did it, I was definitely messy, and oh yeah, I use a little safety pin to help distribute my grounds. I find this to be a really nice way to. Also, the safety pin is free. I pretty much found it somewhere, so no need for a distribution tool for me. I'll do a little whammy bammy over here. Pop my thing on. Nice little tab. Looks pretty good. I would give it a little tap just to get the sidewalls down, and then tap it again, and yeah, we're good to go. So, you know, in general, I think, would I recommend it to somebody? If you're tight on budget and you need a solid grinder, absolutely. If you live in a small space where you don't want to wake up your family or your partner in the morning, absolutely get the grinder. It's super quiet. It's fun. I think it's honestly fun. You kind of, there's some sort of special component with doing all of this yourself, and I think that's what espresso is all about. Is kind of going through it yourself and more of like a manual analog situation. And is this thing gonna outlast, you know, every grinder that I'll ever have? Probably. And that's it. The only other thing I can think of as far as things that you should do when you get this thing is right away grease it, every component up, all the gears in here, just grease them up. Give them, I use like motorcycle bike grease. I think it's like bike grease 2000 or something, and you just smear it on there, smear it in there. When I first got it, it had a little squeak in it. As soon as I smeared it, golden. So no problems there. And yeah, that's the Rock GC grinder. It's awesome. Get one. If you're gonna get one, let me know. Write down your experiences in the comments below. Subscribe, give me a like, send me an email. Send me an espresso machine so I don't have to use this piece of crap. I love it, but it's a piece of crap. Help a guy out. If not, just give me a like or something. Make me feel better about myself.